Welcome to the Mabba Forward podcast, friends. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro, we are supported by Elixir Specialty Coffee. Looks like whiskey, feels like tea, made from coffee and unlike anything you've ever tasted before. Head to elixirspecialtycoffee.com and pick up your elixir today. Use the code IMAPPAFORWARD to get 10% off your first order. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro, we are talking about barrier to entry. During the Lean Into Leadership course that was presented at Coffee Fest last week, for the first time, it was a super successful event. Everyone left very empowered. The thing that kept coming up though was, what was the source of a lot of the gaps? That's the best way to put it. Like a lot of the holes, the gaps that exist in leadership. And in my pondering since then, it's led me to explore the idea of where are the gaps across the whole industry and what are the root causes of a lot of those gaps. Now, if you look at the way that people come into our industry, the barrier to entry, which is what is the thing that stops people gaining entry into either a business or an industry or an education program or anything like that. So what is the barrier that people have to get over in order to enter a field? And in our industry, the barrier is extremely low. It's things like your age. You have to be a certain age to be employable in professions. That's set by law, that you're not allowed to work in the workforce if you're usually below, in Australia it's 14 and 9 months. So as long as you're above 14 and 9 months, there's nothing that stops you from being employable in the coffee industry. You don't have to have any skills. You don't even have to speak the language. You don't have to know anything. There are no courses you have to take. There is nothing that requires you to know how to communicate with your team members. There's nothing that requires you to know anything about the coffee supply chain, or how to deal with customers and how to do customer service. Equally, there's nothing that stops you from getting a similar entry-level position in a roastery or on a coffee farm. Now, getting into business ownership is only marginally higher a requirement as a barrier to entry, and it's purely based on what your access to money is. If you have access to money, you'll be able to start a business in most cases. There's not really anything else that could stop you from opening a cafe or a roastery per se. Why is this a problem? What you might be saying is like, Lee, this is great because it means that people who don't have any other skills at least have a chance of becoming business owners. And they at least have a chance of getting into a career that could be incredibly fulfilling for them. And I agree. I absolutely agree that this is a wonderful opportunity for people to have a chance at getting into something different and becoming a part of a community. But folks, we've ended up in a situation that's a wee bit more of a clusterfuck than is functional. And let me break that down a little bit. We have many people opening businesses in our industry, and the success rate of those businesses isn't even close to what it could be. We have people entering our industry, and the attrition rate of many workplaces in our industry is quite high. Those two things go hand in hand. For those who don't know what an attrition rate is, it's the rate at which people leave your business. It's very high in our industry. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But a lot of it has to do with with a lot of cofactors. People in leadership in our industry aren't required to get any training in leadership. And what that ends up resulting in is a lot of dysfunctional workplaces. They're also not required to have any training in business management or financial management of their own books. So they're left not knowing how to read their own profit and loss statements and manage cash flow and understand their balance sheet. They don't know how to create a culture in a workplace or the bandwidth. Like, friends, starting a business is so hard, and starting it in an area that you don't know a lot about is just making the situation even conspiring against yourself is a really great way to put that. And then you invite people into that situation. You're inviting people into your business to work for you. Not only do you not know what you're doing, but the likelihood that the people that you're hiring have attained knowledge that has been passed down, as well as the bad habits that come with that have been passed down, you're unable to screen for who are the right people that fit your culture and who are the right people that will know what is on target for what you're trying to execute as a business owner. Now, in the coffee industry, our job is to provide hospitality. That is what our job is. Our end product is hospitality, and we use coffee as a delivery mechanism for providing that hospitality. And we are in the business of making sure that we have a number of touch points that can improve the quality of the hospitality that we provide. So, for example, if someone was to come to your house, you can be as nice as you want. But if the meal that you serve them tastes like shit, they're going to remember that it tasted like shit. They'll say that hospitality was wonderful, you felt really, really great, but the food didn't taste great. Again, here, our job in the coffee industry is to provide great hospitality. And if we can do that through the mechanism of an incredible coffee, then the end-to-end journey it delivers. But if we set the barrier to entry so low that nobody really has to be very good at anything in order to get into our industry, they don't have to have any knowledge in order to get into our industry, we are setting ourselves up for a potential catastrophe because there's no solid foundation for us to build the future generations of. Now, what's the solution to this? We have a situation in our industry right now where specialty coffee shops are opening up. It seems to be on every corner. And the result is that we have a saturation of cafes in a lot of markets. For those of you who think there's enough business for everyone, now that's an interesting thing to say, but logically, I want to put it to you this way. There's 10,000 people in a community and there's 5 coffee shops. Those 5 coffee shops are going to do good business. They're going to be able to facilitate providing coffee for 10,000 people and they'll all be busy. And this is just an example, hypothetical. But if 5 coffee shops are busy and doing a great trade for those 10,000 people, let's say we double the number of cafes, those original 5 cafes are going to potentially drop in business, and a couple may end up closing because we're assuming that the cafes that come on, the 5 new cafes are either going to be better or they're going to be the same, and the business is going to be spread across. So now 10 cafes, let's say it ends up being 8 with 2 that end up dropping off, 8 businesses and are servicing 10,000 people. Now, when those 10,000 people were getting serviced by 5 cafes, the 5 cafes were all busy. They were able to employ a number of people, and everyone seemed to be doing well. These new cafes that have arrived, the 5 new ones, another 5 business owners look at the fact that there's 5 new businesses that have come into the trade, and everyone seems to be doing okay. All right, so let's open another 5 cafes from different people. Now all of a sudden you've got the 3 that survived from the first 5, you've got the 5 from the next 5, that's 8, and then another 5, so that's 13. Those 13 cafes are now servicing what 5 original cafes were able to do busy business with. Now, if all of those cafes, or even half of those cafes, are only being serviced by people who know what they're doing, we're going to have a collapse. We're going to have a problem. And there's not going to be enough customers to keep all of those businesses surviving. And this is where we end up with the problem of the barrier to entry. This barrier to entry, allowing people who are just clawing onto a fad, is creating a problem, because the people who actually know what they're doing and running these businesses have to then live through the added strain of just surviving the 2 or 3 years that the people who are opening businesses that don't know what they're doing are going to stay around. And some of you out there may be saying, well, it's a free market. This is the way it all operates. Well, if it is a free market and the people who are opening that don't know what they're doing have bottomless pockets, well, then this is where things start to get really dangerous. Because in fact, what may end up happening is that the people who know what they're doing and do know how to run really great cafes may end up running into such dire cash flow problems that they can't survive. So they're having to close their shops, even though they had really great buying philosophies and employment practices. They're closing their shops because they can't manage the endless issues that come with managing cash flow, and they won't survive. So now we've killed a business that really should have had a chance at surviving, because somebody who didn't know what they were doing, or a number of people who didn't know what they were doing, come into the market. And just open a cafe, because it can't be that hard to run a cafe, right? Not correct. So this barrier to entry is a real problem. Same thing with employment. Now, what's the solution? How do we fix this? It's not going to be regulated. We can't expect anybody to regulate this situation, and we don't want them to. But what I am going to invite you to do is to self-regulate. And so what I'm suggesting by that is, if you are intending on opening a cafe, whether you're in the industry or not already, I would implore you to spend the time in the lead up to opening or getting started in opening your cafe, learning the soft skills and the back end skills that you would need to run a successful business, so that you can conspire to your own success. If you want any information on how to do that, visit our website, look under webinars. There's information there, or listen to this podcast and other podcasts that help you do that. Speak to previous business owners. Find out what are the blind spots that they encountered that they didn't anticipate before they opened, that nobody told them about. Get into the habit of building a community around you of people who have messed up in this industry. Find people who haven't messed up. Find people who do understand what's going on, and increase the scope of what you're doing and the network of people around you, so that you're not on your own. this takes a long time. Slow down in your need to have to do this right now, and build your network, build your skill set, build your understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve and how you want to contribute to the local economy of the industry that you're going to be opening into. If you're an employee, I'm going to invite you to start looking at what the gaps are in your professionalism and in your skill set that can cover up what this low barrier to entry didn't expose you to. So in other industries where you have to go to school or you have to take courses or get certified in certain things so that you can qualify to enter an industry, that's not the case here. So it's not simply that you have to know how to make coffee. In our industry, if you're entering into the industry as a barista, your job is to know how to sell. It's to know how to create the products that are on the menu in the cafe that you're working in. It's to understand customer service, and it's to know how to keep a clean house in the cafe that you're working in. And all of these things conspire to the success of you, the business you're working for, and the customers that you are serving. Getting super skilled up in those fundamentals will help you know that you've covered the bases of what is required to be a base minimum real professional in our industry. Nobody is going to check if you know how to do any of this stuff, but by self-regulating and becoming the best version of a coffee professional that you can be, and then going out and finding business owners who have gone to the same trouble of learning how to really build a business that has a great financial health, as well as an awesome culture and a real commitment to the buying philosophy and the selling philosophy that they have. Those two things are a match made in heaven. And when those two things come together, the barrier to entry that exists, the very low barrier to entry that exists in our industry, is no longer a problem. And so if you are self-regulating in this way, you'll be good. It'll take some time. And as we come into a new decade and we start preparing for next year, I would invite you to make this a priority for your pondering. If you found this information helpful, I would invite you to click the like button. And if you haven't subscribed or followed wherever you're watching or listening to this, I welcome you doing that too. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.